well, I being the owner of the company, I can put you any any role I want. But so the whole point of having this slide is just to let you know that when you work as a knowledge user, you are Splunk assigned to the power role. You'll be given a role which I'll be explaining in next in the next module, I guess, the roles and users. And then you will have the understanding of the company's data. Your responsibility is to create and manage knowledge objects. So it's similar like to the knowledge manager. So I'm just trying to highlight some roles that if you act or work as a knowledge manager, what all roles or responsibility that you have to take care on a day-to-day basis, right? Reviewing permissions. This is again there would be 3 set of permissions. I'm even though I have this slide at the beginning, but I'm not going to cover this slide. It won't make sense as of now. But just understand that there will be 3 set of permissions that you will have: create, read, and edit. Create is basically like where obviously, as the name suggests, you will be able to create it, edit it, and the read it. Read only is the person who is only able to read the dashboard. You won't be able to edit any of the existing dashboard. And the edit is someone who is able to do both create and read, right? So I know it won't make sense as of now. When I'll be showing in the demo, it will make sense. But for the timing, just understand that there are 3 set of capabilities, not roles, 3 set of capabilities which are available on Splunk, right? And this varies based on the role. Like for example, here these are the different roles. Users are someone who is having only read only capability. Power is someone who can read it, who can create it as well. Admin is who can read, create, and at the same time edit someone else's dashboards as well, or any larger object. Okay. So I'm not going to go into the details of this slide. Let me get into the, okay. So I think I'm done with module 1. So it was, straightforward about the knowledge objects. I've covered the forwarders. Okay. Now, even though I don't know, this is something that again I haven't created this module objectives. I don't know who has created it, but the forwarder that I was referring to, since it's there, let me cover it. So the forwarders that I referred initially, or the agents that I referred, those forwarders, those small piece of forwarders are known as universal forwarders, because they are universal as in they are available everywhere, or you can install them anywhere, be it Linux, be it Windows, be it AIX, be it BSD, you name any operating system, you can install them, those universal forwarders, right? There is another type of forwarder which are available, which are known as HF or heavyweight forwarder. Okay. So what heavyweight forwarder does now, how Splunk first of all charges you is, so for example, like you all are familiar with Microsoft Office, right? Obviously. So how Microsoft charges you? You install the software on your laptop, and then you purchase a license, right, for you to use that piece of software, right? But Splunk doesn't charge you based on the installation of your software. You can install a Splunk software on your 1,000 servers thousands times, right? Splunk won't charge you. Splunk will work without the license. When it will charge, I mean by default. So there is one thing which I missed. When you install it, by default, Splunk will be able to consume 500 MB of data on a daily basis, right? The trial version that Splunk comes with, it is capable of, not the trial version, sorry. The trial version is you can use it for free for the first 60 days, I guess, if I'm not wrong, for 60 days, and you can consume any number of data, unlimited data. There is no restriction to that. Once the trial period, that 60 days is over, then it converts into a separate license called free version, right? This free version is something for which you don't have to pay if you consume 500 MB of data on a daily basis. So the moment you consume more than 500 MB of data, the software won't stop running, but it will stop consuming any data which is more than 500 MB, right? So if your organization has a need Obviously, I mean, 500 MB data is very small, right? So obviously, in any organization, be it a large or small or mid cap, you will have the requirement of, I work on an organization where we consume 3 TB of data per day, right? So you can imagine, right, 500 MB is a very small amount, right? So if you go or and consume more than 500 MB of data, then you have to purchase a license called enterprise license, right? Now, why I'm bringing this license into that, I'll tell you. It's me, it is for me to, explain the heavyweight forwarder, right? So as you can understand that Splunk charges you based on how much data you consume. It's very pertinent for someone like a Splunk architect or admin to limit the data consumption. It has to be limited to your requirement only. It shouldn't be like, okay, I have Splunk, I can consume anything. Okay, let's go for the hunt and consume anything under the sun. No, you have to limit your data in a way so that it helps you to at the same time monitor your infrastructure. At the same time, it needs to save the cost of your organization as well. And that is where heavyweight forwarder comes into the picture. Universal forwarder doesn't have the capability of limiting the data. It can forward the data as it is. So if 500 MB, you tell universal forwarder, I have 500 MB or 1 GB of data in a certain folder, you monitor it, you pass it to Splunk forwarder, it will do it as you say it. Whereas heavyweight forwarder, the second type forwarder, has a capability of filtering out the data. So for example, let's say on a server, I am only concerned of monitoring the failed logins only. So what I will do, if I have heavyweight forwarder in any server, I will tell that you only monitor the failed logins. You don't bother about all the other data. I don't want to consume those, the other piece of data. You only monitor that failed logins and you pass it to me. So this way, at the same time, I am saving the cost. Another way, I am also, limiting my Splunk to monitor or, ingest the data specific to my need, right? I'm not bothered about who all successfully logged in into my application, right? I as an administrator, I should be only bothered about the failed login, right? So this is how it will serve the both of the purpose. So to cut that entire this big story short, the difference between universal forwarder and heavy forwarder is heavyweight forwarder can parse the data and can filter out the data. Universal forwarder doesn't have the capability of filtering out the data. As I said, this is again is something not part of this topic. I don't know who has added this one, but for the sake of understanding, this is the difference. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Any question, anything? Thumbs up maybe.
No.
All right. All right. Next is the common ports for the setup. Again, is something that you will eventually understand. So I hope, as I said, like you have already installed Splunk on your local, and you must have seen that when you use Splunk or get into the login page of Splunk, it goes to the 8000 port, right? So for you to install Splunk central server on a server, you have to make sure that 8000 is the default port. So you have to make sure that the 8000 port is not getting used by any of the other applications on your server. Okay, so 8000 is one such port. You have 8089. So this is again, I didn't put, sorry, someone
Uh,
saying.
It is going to 8001, right?
No, so in that case, 8000 is something that is blocked on your, did you use your company's organization's laptop, is it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so in that case, 8000 was blocked, I guess. That's the
Okay.
reason why it switched to 8001. So you can put it put any port, okay? By default, 8000 is the default.
Okay.
Okay. And you have other ports like 8089, which is applicable for indexer. You have, sorry, 8089 is your management port on your Splunk Enterprise or Splunk Central Server. You have 9997, which is required for Splunk to receive the data. So all this data communication, which is happening in between, forwarders and Splunk, is happening over the network and over the port numbers, right? So you have to make sure that there are certain ports. I deliberately I didn't put those ports because you as a Splunk developer won't be you don't need to understand that which all ports needs to be open and all those things. This is something that admin and the architects will be taking care of. So if all those ports are not available on the application, sorry, on the server, then they can switch to any port whichever is available, right? Next one again is something is related to admin training, license master and slave relationship. So what is license master is basically a component similar to Splunk central server and Splunk forwarders or heavyweight forwarders. It basically monitors the Splunk license usage, right? So as I said, that Splunk charges you based on how much data you consume. So your license master is someone who is responsible for monitoring that information, right? So it basically slave is your individual component. So you can consider all your heavyweight forwarders, all your central servers. These are your slave, right? And you will have one master, which is the license master, which will be connected to all these servers, checking in every hour that how much each of these servers are consuming, how much data is getting consumed by each of the servers, right? And then the moment there is a threshold breach, it will trigger an email, it will trigger, there are a lot of other ways of letting the administrator know that where exactly the breach happened, how, and at what time it happened, and whether this is a persistent breach or not. So if there is a breach happen twice a day, it will twice or thrice a day, it will still will work normally. But if the breach happens more than thrice, then it will stop ingesting the data if you have an enterprise license. I'm not talking about the free license. For free license, the moment you breach 500 MB, gone. You are not you won't be able to consume any data for that. All right. Uh, the last one, understanding of deployment server indexer, again is, but anyways, indexer. So indexer is basically, you can consider the indexer as a middle layer in between your forwarders and your central server. So indexer, as the name suggests, is basically the component where you store the data. Okay. So the reason being, consider that, okay, let me go to that diagram. So, so these are the indexes, okay? These small boxes that you are seeing here, these are all your Splunk indexes. And this Splunk icon that you have here, it's actually known as a separate uh, Splunk component known as Splunk search head. Now consider that you have a single server where at the same time you have 1,000 people's logins to search the Splunk data, and at the same time the data is getting ingested on the same server, right? So obviously the system or the server will shut down, right? Because the searching and the indexing, these are all CPU intrinsic job, right? So you cannot have a single server doing both indexing and the searching at the same time, right? So on your system, maybe that Splunk instance that you have is a small instance, right? So on that instance, you can do the searching and indexing at the same time because you are not dealing with 1,000 different servers. But on production environment, where the searching and indexing is happening on the same server, uh, you won't be able to sustain that for a long time, right? Where the searching and indexing happening same time. So what Splunk does, it creates two separate components. So you have search head specifically designed for searching the data, and then you have indexers running behind the scene, which is responsible for ingesting the data, and there will be a connection between search head and the indexer. So you can consider or compare this one with any client server model. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that. So client server model is basically where you will have a web application, say for example Flipkart, right? That's a web application which you are seeing on your desktop, but the data interaction that is happening is not happening on the web application, right? It's happening behind the scene in a database. Similar to that, you have your Splunk searches and indexes, where your searcher is responsible for searching only, and your indexer is responsible for storing the data only, right? Again, it's something, let me reiterate and repeat myself, something is not relevant to your course today, but it helps you to make you understand that what all different components. So we have learned so far Splunk forwarder, universal forwarder, the normal one, which doesn't do any parsing, come what may, it will forward the data. You will have your Splunk search head, which is responsible for searching the data. You have your Splunk indexer, which is responsible for storing and consuming the data. And you have your HF or heavyweight forwarder, which is responsible for parsing the data. So if you have any specific requirement of not to send the entire data set, you bring this guy, he will be responsible for filtering out the data. All right. So I think that's pretty much from the module one. Are all of you good? Are we good to take a maybe a 5 minutes break? I just need to take a maybe a sip of water. All of you are good? Any question? Anything?
No, Jeet, I think we are good. Yeah, we can take a 5 minutes break and we can quickly come back.
Perfect. All right. If you have any question, feel free to, I'm not sure where exactly is the chat, but, feel free to ask me any question. Is my screen visible now?
Yep.
Yes, Jeet.
Okay. So this is the one for which, you need to have Splunk installed on your system. So I hope all of you have installed it. If you have any, you have, if you have come across any difficulty or any issue, let me know. Probably after the session, I can help you out. But it's pretty straightforward where you download the package, you just do next, install it, and then there will be a credential that you have to provide, because once you log into the software, that's something is needed, and then you'll be all set, right? So I hope that all of you have that installed on your system, because there will be a couple of things that I'll be sharing which would make sense if you do it by yourself on the screen, right? So the okay, coming back to the next module, module 2, introducing to Splunk's user interface. So basically, these are the three objectives that I'll be covering. Understand the uses of Splunk, which I've already covered in the previous session. So, but again, there are a couple of other things which I might be covering here. Define Splunk apps, and then learn basic, navigation in Splunk is where we will be definitely needing that Splunk installed on your system. All right. Now, as I was saying, to reiterate that this is all the different location, but not limited, right? So these are all the different data sources or types of the data. So these are the data sources, and these are the types of the data that you can actually get into Splunk, and you can install Splunk anywhere, be it Linux, be it Windows, be it on web, where actually you don't need to install it. You can get the data via HTTP event collector, which is again is a separate topic. You can install it on Linux as well. Sorry, on Apple as well. So, and then you can forward the data from all these different application servers to your central repository, which is known as the Splunk centralized server. And then within the centralized server, you can have all those different components catering their individual work, right? You have different types of data that you can collect: logs, configurations, message, call details, clickstream, alerts, metrics, scripts, changes, tickets, and then finally any data. All right. I shouldn't have called out all those things. I could have just said any data. Anyways, and then you have different devices like computer, network devices, virtual machine, internet, communication sensor, databases, right? So you name it, any system, any machine which is capable. I mean, obviously, if there is a machine, it would be capable of creating data, right? That's what machine does. So any machine which is capable of writing or creating any data, that is something where Splunk, thrives, or Splunk excels at. What is the only challenge, or what is the only blocker from Splunk side? It can ingest only flat data. It cannot ingest binary data. Okay. Again, these are the few tips that I will be sharing throughout the course. Splunk cannot ingest binary data by default, right? So say for example, you cannot expect Splunk to consume a audio file, okay, or a video file, which is a binary in nature. So any flat file, be it a CSV, XML, JSON, you name it, any flat file, any flat data, Splunk will be able to consume it. Now, there is a caveat to it as well. Now, for example, say you have an audio file, right? and you have a script that you have developed. What that script does, it basically parses that binary data into a text data, right? So that is doable. There are a lot of scripts which are available, which can convert binary data into a textual data. Even though the textual data won't make sense to you, because if you open a audio file in a notepad, there will be a lot of ASCII values, gibberish values that will be seen, right? Those data won't make sense to you because you don't have that compiler to compile the data and then render that audio or video, right? But there are scripts which can convert the binary data into flat data, and that flat data can be ingested into Splunk. Okay. So for example, if you have a requirement where you want to consume an audio file, obviously you won't be able to consume the audio file. You have to get that script into the middle of that audio file and in Splunk, create that script as a wrapper, which will convert that binary data into a flat data, and then you can consume that data into Splunk. And finally, that output of the data, again, you can use as another script to convert that flat data into binary file. So finally, you'll be able to get that output as an audio. So it's more like an encryption decryption, right? Where you encrypt the data and then you decrypt the data, right? Similar fashion, you can also work with binary data. All right. All right, so that's pretty much. So you have received the data. So got data. So I'll show you again. This something that I'll be sharing or doing as a demo, which is not part of the session. But for me to complete the session, I need the data, right? So in the next couple of minutes, I'll be showing you. I have a sample data, so I'll show you the sample data, and then I will ingest the data into Splunk. I'll show you that how the data looks by default, like when I show you in a notepad or textpad, and then how it will look like in Splunk. All right. So let me get into the next slide. Yeah, probably before that, let me just show you a couple of slides. This is again is something which is about Splunk. Like you can do application management. As I said, you can monitor application logs and all those things. You can deal with operation management, right, where you monitor your servers and all those things. The one of the greatest, or biggest revenue earner for Splunk is this security and compliance. So SIM area is where also Splunk has reached in, right? So you can monitor your security data, compliance data, and all those things, and can ingest it into Splunk. And there are a lot of other things as well which you can do in Splunk. So overall, this is how it works. First step, actually the first step is not given here. The first step is where you collect the data from different locations. So that would be a first step somewhere here, where I'm showing my cursor. I'm sorry, if someone is not on mute. Can you please go on mute? It's actually creating a feedback for me. Yeah. So the first step is it would be somewhere around here where I'm showing my cursor. It would be basically like where you're collecting the data from different locations from different servers. Second step is where you index the data into Splunk. Third is where using Splunk capability or Splunk power, you search the data, you investigate the data, right? Fourth is where you add knowledge. So that example that I gave you, that 200, the HTTP status code, which is successful, right? So that is where you add knowledge, and that is just an example. There are 1,000 different other ways where you can add knowledge to your data. It's basically where you pass the data, you can actually filter out the data. So even filtration of the data is also something which is can be considered as an adding knowledge, right? Once you have the data in final form that you can monitor and then can create alert, and then finally on that data you can create report and analyze it, right? So this is the whole system of Splunk. These are the different stages of Splunk. Even though the indexing data is a very big step, but in an overall perspective, these are the different stages and how Splunk works. Okay. All right. All right. So now before I get into this, yeah, these are the some things that I can show you in the slide itself, but I would prefer to show you in the demo itself. Okay. So let me first do one thing. Let me first show you the Splunk screen. So I hope my Splunk screen is visible to all of you, right? Splunk Enterprise username password. This is visible to all of you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And as I was saying that, for me it's 8000. That's the default port, but even if it's 8001 or 8002 or 8005 for you, it will give you the same functionality. It's just that probably 8000 or 8001, were not available on your system, and hence Splunk picked, a separate port for you to show this Splunk Enterprise Web UI. Okay.
Jeet, we are still seeing your PPT. Okay.
Oh, I don't know, but that functional, option is also not available to me where I can, share my entire desktop. I don't know why. So I have to switch back and forth in between PPT and this screen. That's not good. Just give me a minute, okay? Let me try with some other option. Uh, can you see my screen, Splunk screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
And can you see my PPT as well?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Both options are available.
Perfect. All right. Thank God. All right. So coming back to that Splunk screen. So this is the the first screen that you will come across the moment you have Splunk installed on your system, and then you must have used some credential while installing the software, right? So I would suggest you to use that same credentials to log in, and then you go and log in. So basically, this is the Splunk interface that you will get to see, the moment when you log into Splunk. Now, there are different things that you will have, so which I will cover one by one. But let me do one thing first. I will show you the sample data that I was referring to. So just give me a sec. Uh, can you see my Windows Explorer now?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
perfect? So this is that hypothetical game store JITS Inc. Data that I have here. Okay, so it's a zip file. So let me just open those data sets for you. So it has 3 separate files. Okay, one is the call center data. As I was selling that, as I was telling that, I as the owner is selling my product over the call center. You have order information, and then finally you have web information. So let me open one after another one. So this is your call center data. All right. So let me, yeah. So it's basically straightforward, right? You have these times, you have your customer ID, you have your queue, and you have some unique identification number and agent ID. So again, it's a sample data that I have with me. So don't think too much about the data. The whole point is that I wanted to show you that how the flat file data is going to look on the flat file, and then how it will look on Splunk, right? So this data is basically assume that all those servers, the thousands of servers that I have, and the forwarders is installed on those servers. What those forwarders are doing, they're continuously forwarding this data on a real-time basis, okay, to Splunk central repository. So on a actual production environment, you won't be able to, or you won't get to see the actual data like how I'm showing here. This will be available to you via Splunk only, right? So this is your call center data. Then I will go to this order data. So this is your order data. Again, your order ID, your status, and some HTTP code that I was referring to. So 200 is successful, 400 is I guess failure or something. Okay. Again, so basically like these are some random order IDs with the status of individual orders. And finally, you have your web data. So let me share that web data as well. So this is your web data, right? So you have customer ID, you have your action, what you have done on that server, And then finally you have your country, from which country you have come, right? And as you can see, like for individual customer, you have 4 data, right? So you see here customer ID, customer ID, customer ID, customer ID. These four events are same. Oh, now, as I was saying that, the events and feeds, right? So this individual action items or individual logs are known as, events in Splunk, as I was telling you earlier. And now if you consider that smallest section or segment of the data, this action equal to add to cart is what known as field. Make sense? So your entire row, this row, this row, these individual rows are your event. Your individual, or sorry, not individual, the smallest section of the data, be it the product, be it the action, be it the customer ID, these are your fields. Now, say I want, I have this, I don't know, maybe this customer ID is of, some celebrity, right? So maybe I am very much interested to 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 know that, this particular celebrity has bought all those products. I need to know, right? So what I will do, I will group these 4 events into another knowledge object, which is, can someone tell what is that called? Anyone? So that is your event type, right? So you are grouping your events, right? So that is your event type. So say for example, C427, I have grouped, if I group all these events into a single section, that is your event type, right? I recall like where I was saying that if you want to group your all your failed logins or, failed checkouts, so that is where the event types comes into the picture. All right. Now what I'll do, I'll just simply ingest all this data into Splunk. So for that, what I have to do, okay, I won't be able to pick up this data from here. So just give me a sec. I need to copy this. Yeah. So again, the steps that I'm going to take now is, something that is not relevant to your development course, but just, since we are already recording the session, just, look at the steps what I'm doing. So I clicked on add data. You can do the same thing from here as well. You go to settings, you click on add data. The moment you click on add data, this is the page that will open, right? From here, you'll have all those options, right? Where, so for example, I want to monitor cloud data, I want to monitor networking data, operating system data. So I have some predefined integrations available, as I was saying. But say if I want to monitor Hadoop cluster, that is something that is not available out of the box, right? So for that, I have to go to the marketplace of Splunk, download that integrator, and then only that same option will be available here. Okay. So for this example, I'm not going to get the data from a forwarder, right? So what I will do, I will upload the data from my computer. So I click on that option. I go to my desktop and I select my game store zip file. Okay, I click on next. I select automatic, fine. Index is basically, so I can create a new index. So as I was, now you might be wondering like why I have indexing and searching happening at the same place, right? Because I said that these are the 2 separate things will be happening in 2 separate components. But remember, it can be done in a single instance as well. But on production environment, since the traffic will be huge and the data ingestion will be huge, you are not supposed to do it in a single instance. But here on tutorial purpose or in a training purpose, I'm doing it on a single instance where I'll be ingesting the data into an index or a repository called tutorial. All right, so I'll keep all these options as it is. I'll just save it. So I have automatic, blah, blah, blah. Host field name. So see, this is one of the interesting one, right? So for the time being, this is showing my desktop name, right? But ideally, when this data will be coming from those 1,000 servers, this host will be by default will picking up those server names, right? So say the web data or order information is coming for 30 different servers. So you don't have to, search for all those 30 servers, right? You can simply filter out the data for, in a given server. And I'll show you that how straightforward and easy that is for you to, filter that data. All right. So that is where this host field information is very important. You have a lot of other options, but I'm not going to go into those things. I'll click on review, I'll click on submit, and that's it. It's uploading the data and I'll search it. And voila, you have all your data into Splunk. And this got processed on a real-time basis. So all of your data. Now I'll explain one after another one. Let me just remove all this extra. So if you can recall that I had tutorial data, tutorial index that I created, right? So if I do index equal to tutorial, that is your first thing that you are supposed to do in Splunk when searching. So don't worry about all this searching and all those terms. I'll be covering all those, in few seconds or few minutes. But as of now, what I'm trying to tell you is that the moment you do index equal to tutorial and you click on the search button, it shows you all the data from all three of the sources. So what all three sources you had? You had web, you have order, and you have customer, right? Call center. So if if I come here, click on source, it will show you all those three. So you have your web.text, you have your call center text, you have your order.text, right?